My hair's not cooperating with me today. I don't want to talk about it. It's been a while. Actually, between the last video and now, I filmed and edited another video and then spent a really long time going back and forth, kind of debating whether or not I liked it, and then ultimately decided that I didn't like it, so I will not be posting it. Which is a shame because I looked cute as hell in that video. You know what? Screw it. Here's a screenshot. I'm just setting the mood, you know? Someone was murdered. Let's be a little somber. Just because you can't see the video doesn't mean you can't still see the Luke. I don't know what's happening. Anyways, that's not what I'm gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about Glee, because the other thing that happened between the last video and now is I rewatched the first season of Glee. I also rewatched the second and third season of Glee, but I will be focusing on the first season. I loved Glee when I was a teenager. I watched it as it was airing. I was a huge gleek. I loved it, but I haven't watched it since. Every once in a while, I'll get into a weird rabbit hole where I keep watching Glee performances on YouTube. So I haven't been completely deprived of Glee since watching it as it was airing, but I haven't actually like watched an episode. I just really wanted to rewatch it. I just decided to do that for me. I wasn't originally going to make a video, but pretty early on I was like, you know what, this would be an interesting thing to talk about. Because Glee is insane. But also, like, the first season started airing when I was 11, I think, and now I'm almost 24. So, like, my views of the world are different now, and I don't know. I thought it might just be interesting to talk about, like, things that I remembered happening differently, or the ways that my feelings have maybe changed and whatever. When I decided that I was going to make videos as I was rewatching, initially my plan was to watch a season and then make a video about it, and then watch the next season and then make a video about it, and then keep doing that. But I started my rewatch right at like the end of October, beginning of November, and then they took Glee off of Netflix at the end of November. I was not aware that this was going to be happening until probably about mid-November. So then it became a thing of like, let's see how much of this show I can get through before the end of the month. And it was literally like 11:45 November 30th, I finished the last episode of season 3. My initial plan was like, oh, it'll be fresh in my mind, like it'll be the last thing I'll have watched it recently, and now it's the end of December that I'm filming this, so it's been a month since the last time I watched an episode, and also the last episode I watched was in season 3, and now I'm going back to talking about season 1. Luckily I took notes, but some of this might be a little scatterbrained and I might, you know, forget kind of some of the points that I wanted to touch on. Also, I would love to keep watching and finish, you know, the whole show in my rewatch. But at this point, that's just kind of dependent on whether it gets moved to another streaming platform and whether or not it's a streaming platform that I have. Fingers crossed. I'd love to keep watching, especially because I remember not being a big fan of seasons 4 or 5, and I wonder if I'd feel differently about it now. Season 6, I remember like really weirdly enjoying because it was chaotic, which I love. So I remember really liking season 6. But seasons 4 and 5 I remember not being a huge fan of, so I would be curious to see if I feel differently about it now. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're talking about season 1. So with this video, I figured I'd start off just kind of talking about some overall thoughts, and then I wrote down anytime a quote made me laugh. So I'm gonna just go through some of those, and then I'll get kind of more into the specific plot points, and then I'll wrap it up just talking about the songs. Starting with overall thoughts, it's funny. And I remember Glee being funny, and that's something that I've always said about Glee. Everybody talks about like, oh, Glee was like the Riverdale of our generation, but it's not, because Riverdale has always been like taking itself seriously, and Glee was never taking itself seriously. It had serious moments, right, and it touched on some more serious topics, you know, like bullying and teen pregnancy and like LGBTQ issues and all of that. Like, It had serious moments for sure, but first and foremost, it was a comedy. And it had some like really genuinely funny moments. Like I was even kind of surprised at how funny I found a lot of the scenes, despite the fact that I've been this advocate for like Glee is really funny. That being said, it's very 2009. Like you can just tell that it came out in 2009. The way that they dress, the amount that they talk about MySpace, the kind of questionable representation where, you know, there are like a decent amount of minority characters. There are like BIPOC characters, there are queer characters, like Artie's in a wheelchair, right? You have a decent amount of representation, but it's also like really weirdly like stereotypical, and like some slurs get thrown around a little bit too much. And it's always a situation where the person saying the slur is in the wrong, right? They're a bad guy, or maybe they're a good guy, but they immediately get called out for it, or like whatever it is, where it's like a teachable moment of like, don't say those words, but they're still using the words. So it was kind of a situation where in 2009, it was this big monumental moment of like, look at how diverse this cast is, and like look at this LGBTQ plus representation and like everything else, where at the time it was like, oh my god, this is amazing. But if we were to have representation done in the same way now, people might be a little bit more iffy about it. Moving away from that, sometimes things on the show would just like happen. An episode would start and two characters would be dating and you'd be like, well, we never established that, but okay. Or the opposite, that characters wouldn't be dating anymore and you're like, wait, when did you break up and whatever. Like a lot of stuff just happened off screen and then you were just kind of thrown into the situation and it was like, oh, okay, I guess we're here now, which was interesting. That's not really the way that shows usually work, and it's not the way that Glee works down the line, but this first season it was just kind of like, yeah, things have happened. Also, the ages of the characters, I don't think they ever get established until season 3 when they clarify at that point which ones are seniors and which ones were juniors, which means that at the beginning of the show, canonically, all of them are freshmen and sophomores, which makes no sense. You're telling me that the quarterback of the football team is a sophomore? Every other member of the football team is a sophomore? What happened to the juniors and seniors, dude? And the head Cheerio's a sophomore too, and like anyone who's involved in any sort of extracurricular activities at the school is a freshman and sophomore. It doesn't make sense. I know why they did it, so that they could keep the show going for longer and keep all of them in high school for longer. Like, I get that, and that, like, from a show standpoint, it makes sense, but from a logistical standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. Last big thought, there were a lot of guest stars, and, like, really pretty big name guest stars in this first season, which was really shocking to me. Some of them, like Kristen Chenoweth or Idina Menzel, I remember them being on the show. I just didn't remember it happening so early. Like, I thought it was a later season thing. By later season, I mean like season 2, but still a later season thing as opposed to the first season. And then there were a few others, like, you know, Josh Groban was in the first season, Olivia Newton-John was in the first season. I didn't remember them being on the show at all. Those are pretty big names. Not only were they on the show, they were both on twice. They were both on 2 episodes in the first season. That's insane, and I can't believe that I forgot about it. All right, on to quotes now. If I was good at this, I would find the actual clips from the show and then insert a little compilation here. Instead, I'm just gonna read them myself. I'm on my feet 4 hours a day, 3 days a week, and now you're telling me I have to go home and cook dinner myself? You need 12 kids to qualify for regionals. Last I checked, you only have 5.5. Sorry. That one's terrible. That one's terrible, but also, like, kind of funny. I guess I just don't have a gag reflex. One day, when you're older, that will turn out to be a gift. That is the most offensive thing I've seen in 20 years of teaching, and that includes an elementary school production of Hair. I've known you were gay since you were 4. All you wanted for your birthday was a pair of sensible heels. I'm the new school nurse, but you aren't a nurse. You don't have any training. Oh, please, Will. It's a public school. Look at this one's so stupid. Look at us. You, pregnant, me, with psoriasis. I know I'm not like the rest of you hippies, caring about the kids' feelings as if they're real. Because you're all minorities. You're in the Glee Club. That one's not supposed to be funny, but god damn it, it is. If it is even 1 minute late, I will go to the animal shelter and get you a kitty cat. I will let you fall in love with that kitty cat. And then, on some dark, cold night, I will steal away into your home and punch you in the face. My sister and I took it upon ourselves to bleach my hair with whatever chemicals we can find around the house. Ammonia? Napalm. You both have dead spouses, maybe you should talk. Suddenly I'm not the guy who sat through Riverdance 3 years in a row. Do me a favor. If we end up next to each other on the bar and ballet club this week, do your arabesques and PKs in silence. That's another one that just gets to me and I don't know why. So you like show tunes. That doesn't mean you're gay, it means you're awful. I was introduced to Jesus. He was my Honduran social worker. That's it. That's all I have for quotes. It's actually not it. That I had to cut down on the quotes because there were so many of them. It's a really funny show, guys. Now I'm gonna get into some of the more specific parts of the plot of the show. So right at the beginning, I had remembered it being that the Glee Club had been disbanded like several years prior. They had gotten rid of the Glee Club and then Will decided that he wanted to bring it back. Turns out Glee Club was still there, but the teacher who ran the Glee Club got fired for inappropriately touching students. Yikes. And that's something that like very quickly kind of gets glossed over. The old teacher continues to be a character throughout the first season and isn't completely ostracized for inappropriately touching students. Didn't love that. Gonna be honest, didn't love that. But then that also begs the question, what happened to the kids who were already in the Glee Club? Maybe it's established that some of the original 6 from the Glee Club were already in Glee, but my understanding is that it's all new kids, like none of them were in the Glee Club before. So what happened to the kids who were in the Glee Club? The Glee Club existed. What happened to them? Also in the first episode, we have a scene where Will spies on Finn in the shower. Again, super inappropriate. Will is a teacher, Finn is a student. Finn's singing in the shower in the locker room and Will spies on him. Super creepy. And then what Will decides to do in order to get Finn to join the Glee Club is he plants drugs in his locker and then confronts Finn about these drugs that were in his locker to blackmail him into joining the Glee Club. I will say I remembered that happening, and I remember being like yikes about it when I was a kid, and I'm even more yikes about it now. However, in the scene where Will is confronting Finn about the drugs that he found in his locker, there's a moment where the camera zooms in to a poster in Will's office that says, "First priority, help the kids," which is peak comedy. That's so funny. So at least the show is like aware of the fact that this is a terrible thing that Will is doing. But also, like, he never faces consequences for it. If anything, he ends up being praised for it in the end because Finn was such a great addition to the Glee Club. I also love in the first episode, and I think this is the last bullet point I have from the first episode, and then I'll move on. There's a moment where Will is watching a performance from a Glee competition he was in high school, and he's like, "Oh, that was the best moment of my life." You're married. You are probably in your mid-30s. You have a wife, and your best moment, the thing from your life that you value the most, is a high school Glee Club competition. I could not get over that. I was like, that's so funny, and it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be like this serious sentimental moment of him being like, oh my god, that was the best moment of my life and I miss it and whatever. But I'm like, dude, it's a high school Glee Club competition. Moving on. Terry, Will's wife, faking her pregnancy. I remembered her just lying about it, like it was just something that she just decided to lie about. Turns out in the beginning she legitimately did think that she was pregnant. It ended up being a hysterical pregnancy, and then she decided to lie about it. So it's still really shitty, but not as shitty as I remembered it. Also though, like, what was her plan? What was her plan? Did she not think that at some point Will would want to go to one of her gynecology appointments? What did she think was going to happen when she gave birth to the baby? Like, how was she going to convince Will to not be there with her when giving birth to the baby? At the beginning, I don't even think she had a baby in place to adopt in order to continue on this ruse. She ends up making an agreement with Quinn, who's one of the high schoolers who happens to be pregnant, that she'll take Quinn's baby and then pose it as her own. But still, there are a lot of complications in there. Clearly this wasn't going to work out for her. Kurt joining the football team. I loved it.
Hey, it's editing me. In this next section, I talk a lot about single ladies, but I keep accidentally saying singles ladies, and it's driving me crazy, so I just needed to mention it. Hope it's not too annoying.
The beginning of that episode, when he and Brittany and Tina are doing the singles ladies dance. Such an iconic moment. And then he tries out for the football team and he does the singles ladies dance beforehand to get himself like loosened up and get ready to kick, and it turns out he's a really good kicker. And the football coach being like totally cool with it, right? That he's like, hey man, if that's what you need to do in order to get a good kick, that's what you got to do. We'll provide the music. Like, he was just immediately on board. It wasn't like a big back and forth or like a we're not gonna let you do that because that's gay kind of thing, which is what I was expecting. He was just immediately like, yep, that's what you got to do. That's what we're gonna do. And then all the rest of the guys on the football team also learning the singles ladies dance, and then them doing it in one of their plays during the game. It was so cool. I like genuinely do not remember a time where I have smiled as hard as I did watching all the football players doing the singles ladies dance. Also, just very quickly gotta give a shout out to this guy. He's so into it. He's so into it. I love it. The other thing that happens at the end of that episode is Mike and Matt join the Glee Club. I forgot that Mike was on the football team, and I forgot that Matt existed. So both of those were a little bit of a surprise for me. I just love that they just like to dance. At this point, there are 4 guys who are on the football team and in the Glee Club. Actually, there are 5 guys if you count Kurt, but 4 guys who started as football players who are now in the Glee Club. There's Finn, who was blackmailed. Puck, who's the father of Quinn's baby. At this point, everyone thinks it's Finn, but it's actually Puck. But he's the father of Quinn's baby, and so he joins because Quinn is in the Glee Club and he's trying to get closer to her. But then Mike and Matt were just like, hey, we had a lot of fun doing single ladies. We had a lot of fun dancing, and it turns out we're good at it, so we're gonna join the Glee Club so we can keep dancing. I think that's so cool. Also, I think that episode is when Kurt comes out to his dad, which happened way earlier than I remembered it. I remember that happening in the first season. I thought it was later on, and I know why I got confused. I will get to it later when we get to that plot point. I remembered it being like a longer thing of him trying to keep it a secret from his dad. Turns out that wasn't the case. He actually came out pretty early on, which honestly I appreciate. That it was like, it wasn't this big struggle to come out to his dad. It was kind of like a 1 episode arc, and that his dad was just immediately accepting of him and totally cool with it. There were still, you know, struggles that Kurt faced because of the fact that he was gay, but his relationship with his dad wasn't really one of them, which I really appreciate. The Kristen Chenoweth episode. Love Kristen Chenoweth. Don't really know how I feel about April. I know that the point of her character is that she's a hot mess, but I mean, she was like giving alcohol to students and like teaching kids how to shoplift. There might have been a moment, I don't remember, but I feel like there might have been a moment where she hooked up with one of the students. Like, so just overall, like, not great. Speaking of giving students illegal substances, Terry getting a job as the school nurse, doing it so she can spy on Will. So again, like, not a great situation, Terry, but also drugging the students. Although the performances that they did when they were drugged up, which aren't on my list of songs to talk about, but I'll insert little clips here.
I just wanna live while I'm alive. It's my life. Everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I can feel your halo. I can feel your halo.
Those are fun. But what a problematic concept. The episode where Sue joins as a co-teacher for the Glee Club suggests that they split the Glee Club into two. So she gets 6 students and Will gets 6 students. And she takes all of the minorities with her to try to make Will look like a bad person. She takes all the minorities with her. I remembered that episode, and I remembered feeling yikes about it when I was a kid, and I still feel yikes about it now, but also in a weird way. Kind of respect it. The fact that both Sue and just the creative team behind the show had the balls to do something like that. Also, Sue and her sister Jean, I think is her sister's name, Jean, are so sweet. And I remembered loving their relationship when I was watching the show as it was airing, and I love it even more now. Tina faking her stutter. Bold choice. Bold choice. Also, just have to point out, in the same episode where we find out that Tina is faking her stutter, we also have the whole Glee Club being in wheelchairs for the week to try to like empathize with Artie, and then they end the episode by singing Proud Mary.
Rolling, rolling on the river. This one's for you, Artie.
I'm trying to not talk about musical numbers until the end when we get into all of the songs, but I need you to understand that we have the entire Glee Club in wheelchairs. We find out that Tina's been faking her disability, and then they all sing Proud Mary in wheelchairs all over the span of 45 minutes. It was a lot to take in. The episode where Rachel has a crush on Mr. Shu was incredibly uncomfortable. At the very least, it was also really uncomfortable for Mr. Shu, which frankly, had this happened later on in Glee, I don't know if it would have been. Mr. Shu's always been a little bit creepy, and he only got more creepy as the show progressed. So I'm glad that at least at this early state in the show, that he was like, this is weird and uncomfortable and completely inappropriate and I don't like it. But also, wow, that one was kind of a rough watch. Like, it was very uncomfortable. I have to talk about another musical number. Quinn's parents finding out that she's pregnant because Finn goes over to their house and sings, "You're having my baby."
You're having my baby.
What did he think was going to happen? They don't know she's pregnant. They're an incredibly religious family. And that's what you're going to do? Yeah, but also Finn's mom just being a total goat and letting Quinn stay with them after her parents kick her out was great. Finn's mom is the best. The only note I have for episode 11 is probably couldn't do the deaf jokes anymore. Will, of course, finds out that Terry has been faking her pregnancy and gets very violent. I understand it was an upsetting situation for him, but also like throwing shit and like, he doesn't hit her, but I think he kind of manhandles her. There are better ways to deal with your anger. I know it's a show and it's supposed to be a dramatic moment and whatever, but still like really didn't like that. Speaking of things I didn't like, Sue, don't remember her losing her job, but apparently she lost her job, and then she sexually assaulted the principal in order to get her job back. That's just not okay. That's just not okay, Glee. You can't do that. Didn't remember anything like that ever happening on the show. Really did not like that. About halfway through the season, we introduce Jonathan Groff as Jesse St. James, who I love. I love any sort of like sleazy, sarcastic, like really dry characters, and Jesse is like the epitome of that. I love him. That character is right up my alley, and Jonathan Groff's performance is everything. Something that I forgot about Jesse though, I remembered him being a member of Vocal Adrenaline, forgot that at some point he transferred to McKinley. Kurt and Finn's parents got together a lot earlier than I remembered. I remember that being like a season 2 thing. Apparently they get together in season 1. Don't really have much else to say about it. I think they're a really cute couple. It just happened a lot earlier than I remembered. The entire Bad Reputations episode was just a time. You got Olivia Newton-John guest starring as herself. You have all of the really shitty music. You have Rachel just being the most Rachel. The Bad Reputation episode was like a lot. Okay, so earlier I talked about how I thought that Kurt came out a lot later than he did, and it's because way later on in the season, Kurt had an episode where he was pretending to be straight, which is what I remembered. I remember that being the episode where like he was amping up the straightness to try to cover up the fact that he was gay, and then ended up coming out at the end of the episode. That's not what happened. He was already out, but then felt jealous because his dad was spending a lot of time with Finn, and felt like it was because Finn was into like straight guy things, and so Kurt was pretending like he was straight and into like whatever, country music and sports. I remember that being the episode when he came out. It's not. But also, it was so cringy in like a good way. I really enjoyed that episode because it was just like, ooh, but in a way that was making me laugh. I also have a note from episode 20, which based on my other bullets is the Lady Gaga episode, that just says, Kurt has such a good dad. No idea what that's about, but I agree. Okay, and last little specific thing that I'm going to talk about is Mercedes and Quinn's friendship. Quinn kind of helped Mercedes with her insecurities when Mercedes joined the Cheerios, and then after Finn finds out that he's actually not the father of Quinn's baby, which how did he not figure it out immediately? They never had sex. I digress. When he finds out he's actually not the father of Quinn's baby and there's some like animosity between the two of them, Mercedes offers for Quinn to move in with her, so they're like living together. Mercedes is in the hospital room when Quinn delivers her baby. Like, they really have this very close friendship in the first season, and then they never talk again. I honestly forgot that they were friends. Like, I didn't remember that they had this friendship because it was only in the first season, and then it's never addressed again, which is a shame. Like, I feel like they should have been friends. Clearly they went through a lot together in that first season. I feel like they should have stayed friends, but whatever. I did want to kind of wrap up the specific plot point section by talking about some notable episodes, but frankly none of the episodes really stood out to me that much in a good or a bad way. So I guess, you know, at least there weren't any episodes that I was like, ooh, that wasn't good. But if I had to choose a favorite episode, I would probably say the Madonna episode. I like that there was a theme. I think it had some pretty solid songs. I do think it went a little bit overboard with the like feminism, but I appreciate that it was at least trying to say something. So if I had to choose a favorite, that would probably be it. Also, just have to give a shout out to the Hello episode because it was the very first episode of Glee that I saw. I know I said I watched it from the beginning. I didn't start watching it as soon as it started airing. All of my friends were telling me like, oh my god, it's so good, you should watch it. And then all of my mom's friends were telling her that it was so good and she should watch it. Which, that's another weird thing about Glee, is that it like appealed to teenagers and to middle-aged women and no one else. And I've never heard of anything else that does that. Like, I can't think of any other piece of media that appeals to teenagers and middle-aged women and no one else. There are things that kind of have universal appeal, so like both of those groups are within the appeal, but it's because it appeals to everybody. I cannot think of anything else that specifically caters to those two groups. It's so weird. Anyways, all my friends are telling me to watch it. All my mom's friends are telling her to watch it. So we were like, this upcoming week, there's a new episode. Let's give it a shot, see if we like it. And we both immediately fell in love with it. And so then after that, we went back, watched the older episodes, and got caught up. And then from there, we just watched it as it aired. Hello was the first episode that I saw, and so because of that, it will always hold a special place in my heart. So I had to give a little shout out to it. Also, just very quickly, there is a deleted scene in that episode where Jesse and Rachel sing Hello 12, Hello 13, Hello Love from a chorus line, and I love it.
There's a lot I am not certain of.
I think that Jonathan Groff and Leah Michelle's voices sound great together. I love the playfulness of it, that they're just like running around Rachel's room and kind of messing around and having fun. And there's a little dialogue back and forth at the end that I think is very funny. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, let's get on to the songs. This isn't only going to be songs that I like. Of course, there will be songs that I like in this list, but I think that it's also important to acknowledge songs that are just kind of iconic. Things that are just like staple Glee numbers or that the fandom has really clung to. Also songs that I really didn't like. And again, I'm just going to be going through them in the order that they happened in the show, because that's the order that they're in my notes. But first, just to get them all out of the way, anytime that Will rapped.
Now I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. Wants to dance to a different group. Now you know what to do, G, bust the move. Let me see that song. Out the hook while my DJ revolves it.
We didn't need to see that. So starting with the iconic Don't Stop Believing.
Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling.
I am sure that every single cast member of Glee hates this song, but like when you think of Glee, you think of this song. Also though, first episode, singing at the end of the first episode, there's only 6 of them and 2 of them are singing lead, and you're telling me that the other 4 are doing all of the acapella? I don't think so. Push It. Hated it. Hated it. I know that it was supposed to be inappropriate, but still. Say a Little Prayer.
While combing my hair now, I wonder what dress you wear now. I say a little
I love the choreography. I think Quinn's voice sounds great. Obviously, that's not Brittany and Santana singing, but we're willing to set that aside because this number is great. Bust Your Windows.
I bust the windows out your car, and no, we didn't mean my broken heart.
She killed it, and also the Cheerios look so hot. I watched this number so many times when I was growing up. And somehow, it still took me until I was 18 to figure it out. Moving on, I already talked about the football players doing Single Ladies, but I have to mention it again. It's just so good. Hate on Me.
Hate on me, hater, now or later, 'cause I'm gonna do me. You be mad, baby.
This was from the episode where the minorities got split off into their own Glee club, so, you know, it's kind of a questionable moment, but honestly, it's a bop. Ride With Me, also from that same episode.
You wanna go take a ride with me, the tree running in the floor with the goatee. So why do I live this? Hey, must be in my head.
I really liked this one because it feels like a genuine choir kid moment. Like watching this scene brought me back to being in a high school choir room and someone brought their guitar or someone's like noodling on the piano and all of us are singing along and having fun. That's the energy that this song gives me. Again, I already mentioned Proud Mary.
Rolling, rolling, yeah, rolling on a river.
I just can't believe that that's a thing that happened. Jump.
Might as well jump. Might as well jump.
This number is so much fun. It's fun to watch. It makes me want to do it. Like, I want to go to a mattress store and jump around. And I am telling you,
I'm staying, and you, you're gonna love me. Yeah.
Amber Riley killed that number. I had chills watching it. She's so good. And she actually went on to play that role in Dreamgirls, and I'm sure that she was unbelievable. She is so talented, and oh my gosh, her singing that song was amazing. Don't Rain on My Parade.
Don't tell me not to live, just sit and putter. Life's candy and the sun's a ball of butter. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade.
Just another classic Glee song. Although the competition that they sing it for in this case, the criteria that made them choose Don't Rain on My Parade was that they needed a ballad. I don't know if I'd classify Don't Rain on My Parade as a ballad. I could be wrong though. I'm willing to be wrong. My life would suck without you.
You got a piece of me, and honestly,
I have mixed feelings about this one. I think it's really cute and fun, right? Seeing them doing choreography from previous numbers, but it happens so early in the show. I think it's like episode 12, maybe episode 13, like very early on in the show. I'm assuming it was a mid-season finale, but still. It felt really weird to have a nostalgic number when there have only been 12 episodes. It would be one thing if it had been the season finale, but it wasn't. But even doing it for like a season 1 season finale, unless the show was like ending and you knew it was ending, like it still felt like a weird thing to do, let alone in like the middle of the first season. 4 Minutes to Save the World. Not sure if that's actually what the song is called, but you know what I'm talking about. I just love a good horn section. Okay, I have 3 from the Bad Reputation episode right in a row. Can't touch this.
My music hits me so hard, makes me say, oh my Lord.
I get tired just watching them do that dance. I can't imagine how exhausting that day of shooting must have been. Run, Joey, run.
Daddy, please don't. It wasn't his fault. He means so much to me. Daddy, please don't. We're gonna get married.
Also kind of an iconic number. Any Glee fan just vividly remembers Run, Joey, Run. What did Rachel think was gonna happen? You take the 3 boys at the school who you've been romantically involved with, convince all of them to do this music video with you without knowing that the other boys are also in this music video, and then show it to everybody and have that be the reveal to them that the other boys are also in the music video, and you don't expect that to backfire? I know that the whole point of Rachel's character is that she's like a total narcissist and only thinks about herself and has like no concept of anybody around her and their feelings and whatever. I know that that's how Rachel is, but it's so Rachel-y. It's almost too Rachel-y. But, I mean, it's a terrible song, which is great. And also, just the iMovie editing is so funny. And then afterwards, when she's regretting her decision, she sings Total Eclipse of the Heart.
I don't know what to do. I'm always in the dark. And living in a powder keg and giving off sparks.
The ballet. It's bad. And not just in a, like, I have ballet experience, I know what the technique is supposed to look like, and it doesn't look the way that it's supposed to look, and so it's annoying me kind of way. Yes, that is happening. But also, I don't think that you really need ballet experience to see that, like, they're not doing a great job. And more importantly, why did they put her on point shoes? She clearly doesn't have ballet experience. Like, you can tell just by looking at her that she doesn't have ballet experience, and you're gonna put her on point shoes? She's gonna hurt herself. They could have put her in flat ballet slippers and still done a ballet number, and it still wouldn't have looked good. But at least they wouldn't have been putting her at risk of breaking her ankle. I cannot believe that they put her on point shoes. She's not all the way up on her toes. Like, her technique is like not good. Like, she could have really hurt herself. And also her arms. Oh, her arms throughout that whole number just annoy me so much. Why are her shoulders moving so much? I know, she's emoting to the song. But you're doing ballet, your shoulders aren't supposed to move. It irks me. Moving away from Bad Reputation now. Jesse's Girl.
You know I wish that I had Jesse's girl. I wish that I had Jesse's girl.
I'm only giving a little nod to this number because, like, clearly the only reason why they named Jonathan Groff's character Jesse is so that they could have this song. And I just love the commitment. Dream On.
Dream on, dream on, dream on.
Matthew Morrison and Neil Patrick Harris sound great. They're singing it to audition for a production of Les Mis? Why? And at the beginning of the scene, Will mentions that he was thinking about singing The Impossible Dream from Man of La Mancha, which makes a lot more sense. I still don't know if I'd use that song for a Les Mis audition, but I'd certainly use it over an Aerosmith song. It's just really weird that that's their song choice. I think the episode was all like songs about dreams or songs with the word dream in them, and so I think that contributed to it slightly, but still, they could have sang The Impossible Dream from Man of La Mancha, or, you know, I Dreamed a Dream from Les Mis. I know that it's because they wanted the two of them to sing an Aerosmith song, and they sounded great singing that Aerosmith song. But why have you done it in a setup where they're auditioning for Les Mis? That song makes zero sense to audition for Les Mis for. Safety Dance.
We can dance if we want to. We can leave the old friends behind. Cause your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they're no friends of mine.
I actually remembered this number being very clearly a fantasy sequence. What actually happens is a weird fake out moment where they're like, he's cured. He can walk now. And then he starts dancing and whatever. And then it like cuts to, oh, he's just daydreaming about being able to walk, which I don't love. The other thing I want to say about this number is Kevin McHale killed it. He might be one of the best dancers in the cast, and he's in a wheelchair for the whole show. Bad Romance.
Caught in a bad romance.
Just a good number. Moving on. Man's World.
Man's world would have been nothing, nothing without a woman or a girl. Without a woman.
I think a lot of people really like this number, which to a certain extent I get, but also why? I'm finishing it up with Bohemian Rhapsody.
Come on,
I just want to know what was going through their head. How did they come up with that? That's it. There were probably things that I wanted to touch on that I kind of skimmed over, but whatever. This is comprehensive enough. I guess to wrap up, I did genuinely enjoy watching this. There are some things that maybe didn't hold up so well, but I think overall, like, it's still a good show. This first season was a little scattered at times. I think season 2 is when it really kind of starts to click. But still, I mean, there were a lot of really great moments in this first season, a lot of really funny lines, and some of the most iconic songs from the show were in this first season. Overall, pretty good.